Picture of splendor that the prairies are.
The RCMP announced yesterday that Toronto is the heroin storehouse of North America. They also announced that they'd broken a pipeline of heroin into Toronto from sources in Pakistan and India. After a 7-month investigation, 26 arrests have been made and more than $100 million worth of heroin has been seized.
Joining me now in Toronto is the man who headed up that investigation, RCMP Inspector Wayne Blackburn. And to talk about the growing problem of heroin addiction is Tom Franklin, head of the drug therapy program at the Addiction Research Foundation. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Afternoon, Ralph.
Good afternoon.
All right, Inspector Blackburn, let me ask you something first. I think when people think of heroin, they do not think of Canada or Toronto specifically. They think more of New York City and large urban American centers and things like that. I guess people are kind of shocked by all this. How did Toronto end up becoming such a major depot for heroin?
Well, I think Toronto has been growing into a cosmopolitan city over the last 10 years. We've always had a heroin problem in Toronto, which has been here. And what we're finding is that the drug trade feel very comfortable coming to Toronto, and there are tremendous connections between Toronto and New York.
What makes them so comfortable?
It's a friendly city.
Yeah.
And the city has a mosaic of all the ethnics that are represented from source countries. So a lot of the people that we deal with have friends and relatives here as well.
So people can come here, blend in, and I guess they can also get across that border and come through Pearson International with all those international flights pretty quickly, eh?
Well, our Pearson Airport is the busiest in Canada, and we're finding that we have visitors going through there from all over the world, and as a result, the smugglers are able to hide with a plane load of people coming in very easily.
Now you went to India as part of a team, and you sent back a woman as what they call a mule, somebody who has heroin on them.
Yes.
Back to Toronto. Tell me about that.
Well, we were approached by the organization that we were investigating, and they recruited one of our female undercover operators to go to India and to bring back 1 kilo of heroin in a false-sided suitcase. And basically what happened there is they promised her that she'd never be caught, that she'd make $10,000 for the trip. They went out, bought her airplane ticket, paid all her expenses, and put her on the plane here, had her met in Delhi. We found that the accommodation that she was going to be provided wasn't adequate, so they then put her in a fairly nice hotel in downtown Delhi and made sure that she was well looked after so that they could send her back here with the suitcase that they had the heroin in.
And she got back no problem?
Well, because we were there to make sure she came back with no problems, but the situation was that she was at risk all the way through because of if the heroin was ever caught, she was the one that was going to go to jail.
Yeah, and you get to make arrests because of the work she did, the dangerous work.
That's right.
All right, Tom Franklin, people wouldn't be doing this kind of a trade and taking these kinds of chances if there weren't addicts at the other end who really wanted the drug. What are the figures like? How much of an increase has there been, and what kind of people are taking heroin right now?
Well, as Inspector Blackburn said, Toronto does have a heroin addiction problem, has had for a number of years, and it tends to rise and fall depending on a number of factors. One of them is the availability of the drug. Now, in the last 3 or 4 years, we've noticed a gradual but persistent increase in the number of people that are presenting for treatment with a heroin addiction problem here.
All kinds of people? I mean, you're getting them from all walks of life?
There really is no stereotype that we see. We get people that some say that they've never had a job in their life, to professionals, university students, cab drivers, old age pensioners. It's really the whole realm of possibility there.
And they're not alone in Canada. Montreal, Vancouver, large urban centers, they have heroin problems like ours, I guess.
That's correct.
You know, you got to wonder, though, about busts like the one that the inspector's involved with. I mean, does it really do any good to keep busting the people bringing the drug in, or are we talking about the fact that people think they need something like heroin and you really have to start there?
Well, I think you have to look at it as ideally a multifaceted approach. That's doing some good. I think you have to look at education, prevention, and treatment as well.
So it's not as simple as busting people. But Inspector Blackburn, you think you're doing some good here, or you think you're just putting a finger in the dike?
Well, putting the finger in the dike is I think, too superficial to look at it. I think going with what he says is exactly what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to squeeze at each end. The enforcement end will only be effective if we have people that are trying to get the youth not to use drugs and to try to rehabilitate the people off the drugs that are using them. And if every facet isn't working together to get that type of result, then one effort alone isn't going to work it. But a cooperative joint effort is what we need at every facet to try and affect the drug scene.
Tom Franklin, what do you think is the most important thing needed right now? Do you think what the inspector's doing is worthwhile, or do you think heroin addicts are going to find their heroin regardless of his efforts?
I certainly think it's worthwhile, but I also think from the treatment perspective that you have to be able to offer some kind of assistance to people who have gone the further distance in terms of the drug use, and certainly that's what we're trying to do at present. But again, as the inspector said, I think we may appear as strange bedfellows here, but in fact we're both working towards the same end.
Do you think it's going to get any worse, Inspector, or do you think you're finally realizing how high it is and getting a handle on it?
That's hard to say. Well, I've been in drug enforcement for about 17 years, and I haven't seen much of a decline. I've seen changes one way or the other. Where we're seeing some results coming are with the drug awareness programs that we have, the community involvement programs, where we're seeing at the younger spectrum people not using drugs.
All right, I thank you both for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Coming up next, creations from Mel Brooks.